600 days. I've done it. Woo! It's not that impressive. It's just consistency. But I did it, and now I'm making a video about it. So, get owned, I guess. I don't know. Alright, something in the video goes as follows. First, I just talk about my experience with it, and then I talk about how good I am at speaking the language from my point of view. So that's talking about all the things like grammar, vocabulary, speaking, writing, listening, and reading. And then I'll actually speak with a native Swahili speaker, and then I'll give my concluding remarks. And I'll timestamp everything, so if you just want to hear me try to speak Swahili to somebody, then you can go and do that and leave, and that's fine. But if you want to stay for the whole video, then I thank you, because increased retention means increased impressions. It's just good for the channel. But yeah, hope you guys enjoy. Subscribe if you see the work that I put in. And let's talk about my experience with it. Oh boy, was it super exciting. It was normal. Like, what do you expect? What do you want me to say? I spent 2 to 3 minutes every day doing Duolingo. At first, I kind of cheated and I looked at all the translations and just sped through it as quickly as I can. And the goal was under 2 minutes. I tried to get it under 2 minutes. But later, like 75 days ago or so, I started actually trying to translate it and then checking and using the answer key thingy to check my work, like all the teachers tell you to do in school. And oh my gosh, it works. I feel like I learned better when I tried to answer, tried to fill in the blank, tried to create a sentence before looking at what the direct translations were. So that was interesting to find out. Yeah, I mean, I guess I could talk about how the lessons are set up, because I think it's set up very poorly. In Swahili, you have a root verb, and then you have the prefixes to say who is performing the action and when they performed it. So you could have the verb kusoma, which is to study or to read, and you could say Nina Soma, which means I study or I read. And you can change those prefixes so that Nina Soma can become Tuli Soma, we studied. Tu meaning we, and li meaning past tense. But what the Duolingo course does is it doesn't teach this key grammar fact. It doesn't teach how the language is set up. Instead, it teaches each combination of prefixes as its own word. So you could have tulisoma, tunasoma, tutasoma, nlisoma, mnasoma, ntasoma, ninasoma, nilisoma as 8 separate words, instead of just teaching all of the prefixes and then just learning each root verb as a specific verb. So I just don't like how it's set up. It doesn't make any sense to me, because if you don't learn the rules, then it's going to be harder for you to understand it in the long run. This is good for learning initial words, right? But long-term learning doesn't support this method, or this method doesn't support long-term learning. So that's one of my biggest complaints with what I've experienced over the last 600 days, is that the way they teach it is pretty terrible. And they also use weird words. These words aren't as bad as what I was learning in Portuguese in the Portuguese course, but they still talk about animals too frequently. And they talk about weird things like washing clothes and sweeping the house and stuff. And I just think they focus on some things that shouldn't really be a priority. But enough about the course. Actually doing it was fine. It was good because it exposed me to the language daily, so I worked with it daily, and I think that helps a ton. Because, for example, I used to study an hour a day. Not an hour a day, an hour a week. And then I switched it to 10 minutes a day, and I think that helps me learn a lot better than 1 hour a week. Learning every day like that is so much better. So I think overall Duolingo is a good thing. I never did over 2 lessons a day. I probably only did 1 lesson a day for 600 days, and I'm completely alright with that. Because like I said earlier, I don't think this Duolingo course really supports learning Swahili. And I think those are all my thoughts. I don't really have too much more to say besides that. Alright, let's talk about my skills. Firstly, vocabulary. Duolingo did not teach me a lot of vocabulary, I'll tell you that much. Teach me some basic words. At least it taught me words like, kujifunza, kusoma, kuandika, which is to learn, to read, to study, and then to write, respectively. Basic words, and that was really helpful. Or kuja, to come. So lots of good basic words that you use a lot. But it also taught me some weird words that I don't remember, like Simba, which is lion, and Pembe. Pembe is something. I don't know. Ngombe is cow. Like, I don't talk about animals in my day-to-day life. I wouldn't say my vocabulary is great. For 600 days of studying, you would think that I would know more. So we'll say on a scale of 1 to 10, my vocabulary is at like a 4 for how long I've been studying. Next, we have grammar. The pace that they take you at in Duolingo is so slow. So my grammar is pretty bad. I'd say that's a 2 out of 10. They don't teach grammar at all in Duolingo. And it's kind of funny because you need to know some grammar. You need to know how it's set up, how the language is set up, so you can, learn more efficiently. But they just don't do that. They just skip it. So my grammar, yet again, is pretty bad. Speaking. I don't practice speaking at all, essentially. I have no idea how my speaking is. I write a lot. And it's written exactly how it's spelled, and there are no weird sound. When I say weird, I mean different than English. There are no weird sounds in Swahili, except maybe like a TH sound that isn't quite the same in English, because in English you have the and the. So I guess it is the same in English. It's just a unaspirated the. I don't know. But yeah, there's only one really tricky sound. And there is a tricky sound in Tanzanian Swahili that I can't say, but it's fine because people in Kenya say it differently, like in a way that Americans can say it. So it's a non-issue. Overall, I'd say my speaking is a 6 out of 10. It's better than my vocabulary is for how long I've been studying, but still not super great. D-, not super great. Next is writing. Writing is essentially the same as speaking in this language because everything is spelled how it's sounded and sounded how it's spelled, and it all uses Roman characters. So also not really an issue. Same thing, 6 out of 10. Next is reading. I'm actually pretty decent at reading. Reading's probably the skill I'm best at because I find it's the easiest for me to practice and get new vocabulary. So I'd say that's 8 out of 10. It's much higher than speaking and writing. Listening, however, is very not good. My listening is quite poor. I would say it's a little better than my grammar, but much worse than my vocabulary. So I'd say it's a 2.1 out of 10. I find listening to be the hardest part about learning languages. Even in Portuguese, I can speak much better than I can listen. Listening's just tough. You just gotta do it so much. And I think once I live in Tanzania, it'll help me with my listening greatly. So I'm not super worried about it, but doesn't mean it's good. And now is the part where I talk to somebody in Swahili. So let's go.
Hey, my brother.
Habari.
Salama, sijui za kwako.
Sielewi. Wewe unasema pole pole zaidi.
Okay, sawa, usijali kwa hilo. Kama hivi.
Mimi ni nzuri. Sijui maneno mengi. Lakini niko salama. Nilifanya video wa YouTube na ni ngumu kuzungumza kuhusu YouTube kwa Kiswahili kwa sababu sinafanya sana.
Sawa, hakuna tatizo. Labda tunaweza tukazungumza kuhusiana na mada nyepesi ambazo unaweza ukafahamu vizuri sana.
Labda nadhani tunaweza kusema zaidi. Wewe
Nimefurahi sana kunipigia simu leo. Vipi?
Nzuri. Wewe una muda
Vipi?
sana.
Sijaelewa.
Oh, leo yangu ni nzuri. Uh,
Ndio.
uh, nilifanya mazoezi.
Okay. Ulifanya mazoezi
Ndio.
asubuhi na mapema.
Sasa ni asubuhi kwa mimi. Kwa sababu
Oh, ndio.
ninaishi na Marekani. Alright, final thoughts on my 600-day journey in Duolingo. I've learned a lot since my 100-day Duolingo, but I've also learned that this language is so much harder than Portuguese. And even Thai. I feel like I'll learn Thai more quickly than I'll learn Swahili, because Swahili, its grammar is just so different. In Thai, it's SVO, same with English and Portuguese. And I think Swahili follows the same way, but the prefixes just make everything so odd. And Ngeli makes things so complicated. And Ngeli is the noun class system. So each noun, you know, in French, how everything has a weird gender, has a gender associated with it. Or in Spanish is a better example. You would always say la biblioteca and not el biblioteca. That just sounds wrong, because biblioteca is feminine, so you have to use the feminine form of the, I think it is. It's either the or which is la and not el. Yeah, Swahili has 13 of those. Not 2, 13. So you pair Ngeli with the weird prefix and suffix system, and I just feel like it's so much harder than both Thai and Portuguese. Granted, I've only been learning Thai for about 6 months and I'm still pretty bad at it. But I think that understanding Thai will be easier than understanding Swahili. It's like one of those things where conceptually it makes a lot of sense, but doing it's really hard. And I think it's the opposite for Swahili. I think conceptually it's really hard, but actually doing it is quite easy. So once you understand how the prefix and suffix system works, it's generally pretty consistent. Ngeli, on the other hand, whole different beast. But I think it's one of those things where I'll have an easier time learning it when I go there, much easier time learning it when I go there, and I'll be able to better identify when things are wrong and when they're right. I don't know, that was such a weird tangent that I just went on. Yeah, final thoughts. It's not a good course, but it's sufficient. And I think it's helpful just to do one lesson a day. And I encourage you to do one lesson a day and learn the rest by reading. I think reading is such a great tool to learn Swahili. And BBC Swahili, great for listening. And I think that's all I have to say. Thank you guys for watching, subscribe if you enjoyed, and hopefully I'll see you in another video. Also, I should say, I'm starting English tutoring and Portuguese tutoring, and biology tutoring. I majored in biology at UW-Madison. So if you want tutoring in any of those 3 things, it's how I'm gonna make money and travel the world. Just email me. My email's in the description, and we can talk about rates and what to expect and whatever. And that's it. Pretty casual since I haven't really started grinding my own business yet, but if you want to get a head start on it, let me know. Anyways, have a great day, guys. Hopefully I'll see you in another video.